So I don't know exactly what to call it. It's like magic, but I can feel into their energy body sometimes. I can't like I'm not like walking around town feeling into everyone's energy bodies, but I can like feel where they're feeling the energy because I'll guide them into their body before even tapping your child and your subconscious, um, different parts of your subconscious, tap them into body sensation. And sometimes before they can, I can feel where the sensation is in their body. And if there's someone who's not super tapped into their body yet or body awareness, then I'll be able to guide them like, oh, bring your awareness here. But if there's someone who's tapped into their body awareness, then like, oh, I feel in my throat. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, well, I feel in my throat too. Because I can feel exactly where their energy begins to move. So that's been really fun. And then I'll get visions sometimes of like, sometimes I'll have them bring their inner child to like a field or like outer space. And I can see a vision of what them and their inner child are doing together. And so I'll guide, I'll be like, oh, okay, now go ahead and do this with your inner child. And they're like, whoa, I was already doing that. How'd you know? And it's like, so kind of like I already know what was happening before it was happening. But um, yeah, that's something I'm deepening into, especially with David right now, my psychic gifts. And during these sessions, right when I started all this, I had, this has never happened to me before, but my third eye just would like, something would move from my right side of my head here and it would just start like pulsing. I just started feeling that as you were talking. And it's cool. It's just like a reminder, like source is like working with me. Like it's like me and like it's Caroline, but it's like source energy moving with me and through me and guiding me. So it's not just me, but I've become a channel to allow this source energy to move through me and help others. And so a lot of times after sessions or even after like free master classes I've held, people are like, whoa, like I got activated or like so much has changed or like something's different with my energy. And I'm just like, because it's like that like tuning fork. Yeah, it's so beautiful.
It's like
And
those are the
so
intended results.
yes, it's so soul filling. I just love it. And I feel the need to mention like a lot of people are like, oh, so you're doing Reiki and like yeah, like for sure this is like a form of kind of like energy healing for sure, but the participant is an active participant rather than you just lying down closing your eyes. You're actively dropping in, and I'm teaching people how to be their own medicine so that they can go home and they can walk themselves through this as well, and it's like always
Mm.
with them.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's cool. So you're almost giving as you're showing them, like as you're walking them through what you're doing, it's also simultaneously showing them how they're able to access that when they're not specifically with you and how they're able to use it in their own or on their own.
Yeah, exactly. And so um, once you access it at this deeper level in these sessions, it you have a whole new level of awareness and consciousness and capacity and expanding their capacity to feel and to experience. And when you expand your capacity to feel, even like the deeper stuff of like not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, whatever the inner child is showing up as, when you experience that and allow yourself to feel that, then you get to experience higher states of consciousness and deeper states of bliss. So it's like some people are like nervous to feel, especially like a lot of men, it's like it can be like they're nervous because it's like a deep program, right? But I always tell people like there's nothing you can't handle because it's already within you. It's already you. It's like there's nothing you can't handle. And you're at a place now, especially in a session with me, where it's like two nervous systems, like you're totally safe. Like, but people are like, so sometimes men I find are a little bit nervous. They'll definitely show up. I have a ton of male clients, but at the first session, they're just like, what is this? And then they start to just experience shifts and changes. And I made a joke where a lot of the men I work with begin to clear their rosters. And like deep down, like they want their queen deep down, even if they're just, like fucking whoever and have their rosters and this and that. And they start to like see things differently. I had a client text me the other day. He's like, wow, like I just went on this date and like she wanted to hook up and I was like, hey, I'm just not down for that. Like I'm just worth so much more now. And like I'm just not shortchanging myself. And I'm like, hell yeah. I was like, that's so sick because I'm not telling him what to do. That's his choice. His
Yeah.
energy is just shifting. And he's like, I was like, he just kept showing up. Like he'd been sleeping with different women. And I was like, hey, wait, you said you feel like an embodied woman, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's so interesting because you're sleeping with those women who aren't embodied and like who are just like not even wanting to get to know you before just sleeping with you. And he's like, oh fuck. He's like, damn. And he's like, you're right. And I was like, yeah, like you should, yeah. It's just interesting to just be aware of. And like so often I feel like people see like women like sleeping around and like just wanting to feel enough. And like that's so it's the same for men. Like they just want to feel enough also. And it's just so beautiful, like seeing the shifts in all humans, but like something with like helping men to transcend that energy and clear their energy has been so healing for me too.
No, I think this is a probably a really powerful topic that we could wrap on for a little bit here, because I know that in my journey, I was from like a meta level. I went from like being the nice guy to being the fuck boy to now being more, you know, a lot closer to embodying the divine masculine, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see throughout that journey how I can see the enticement of each of those steps. And especially the guy who has a ton of chicks on his roster is going to tend to be in that fuckboy energy. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that this type of information can be very can be information that men would want to push back on, especially hearing it from a female. And I know I was very much in this place as well, where it's like, well, I'm not going to listen to a female about what a man should be doing. It's a very much this energy of society would see me as weak for being vulnerable. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
huge thing that I think, especially in the manosphere, or, the men's rights movements, that, and maybe not all of them, but just generally speaking, there seems to be this convolution between weakness and vulnerability. And for some reason, I think our minds seem to create them as the same thing. Now, whether it's a society thing, whether it's like a testosterone thing, whether it's the way that our body chemicals are aligned, I have no idea. But there's definitely this really strong correlation that we tend to make. And I know I'm talking very general on this, but I'll say I made, especially as a man, thinking vulnerability is weakness. Why should I listen to women about how I should go about dating? So therefore it was like this whole like negation of, first of all, half the population, A, and B, it's like almost this energy of like, I know, and if I don't know, then other guys will know. And on top of that, it seems like the idea of being with a bunch of women is like this pinnacle standard within the material world that I think men try to get to. It's like, okay, I was a nice guy, not getting anything, sacrificing my own truth, thinking that if I'm nice to girls, that's what's going to unlock sex for me. Then they take the next step of, okay, fuck it. Like, forget about the other gender. I'm going to do my thing. They're, I don't know how to say this without sounding too much like a dick, but they're basically there for, my physical pleasure or
Yeah, we
just
all
for
go through that for
sex.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I find it such a very fascinating, you know, trajectory. And I think a lot of people even probably get stuck in that, that fuckboy phase, because, they saw their entire life how difficult it was to be with a woman. Then once you're getting an abundance of women, you're like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I figured it out. Like this is great. Like what else is there to learn? Like I'm good. I figured it out. And then it brings up this idea, an idea that I came across recently. I think I probably heard this from Chris Williamson as well. But it's the idea that just because something's difficult to obtain, it doesn't mean that it's valuable.
Wow. I
And
love that.
that was huge in this whole thing. It's like, to have a metaphorical roster of, let's say, however many 10 girls, whatever it is, 5, 10, whatever, use whatever number
Wow,
you
play
want.
10 girls. You were doing it.
No comment.
He's like, I'm just coming up with random numbers and
Just
throwing
somebody I know, not me. uh so you think like, okay, I did this difficult thing, and yeah, you did, but then there's this like also this convoluted nature of thinking because it was difficult means that it's also valuable. Now,
Mm.
I do believe that it's quote unquote valuable if you're aligning with the physical world, with this material existence, with the egoic nature of reality that arguably is not going to last you into this like everlasting fulfillment, right? It's not going to take you to that place that you're truly looking for. And I truly believe that anyone who's seriously on this enlightenment journey, they might get tripped up at that, egoic, like whatever, like racking up the numbers, if you will. But once you get to that point, I think, of realizing like, this is just a waste of time. And this is a waste of my energy. This is kind of just a waste of a lot more that I could be putting out in the world. And it's all getting funneled into how can I hook up with the next girl?
Mm. Yes. Ooh. I want to like clip this part and put this on Instagram because I was even caught up in it on my side of things. I went through periods where I was like, I got hurt and I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna do my roster. you know? And like and like yeah, oh my gosh, it just leads to like such emptiness. Like it could go for a minute, for some, but like for for everyone, but I'll speak upon like the men's side, it leads to like emptiness and like a lot of men get to that point and some men just don't realize it yet, like where they're like truly, truly deep down, like a lot of them, I'd say like 99% from just all the men I've talked to, different clients, like truly actually really desire like their queen, like that partner in crime they could just like have wild sex with, have a beautiful life with, just like do fun shit, more freedom than they ever thought possible, right? This like divine union energy, but it's just like can feel so far away or so out of reach or something. And also like the mind is so limited. So it could just be like, oh, I've had shitty relationships, or I felt like my power was taken or my freedom was taken away. So like, why would I ever want to do a relationship? And like, I've been through that too, where I'm like, you're telling me I could just have tons of great sex with like attractive beings and like not really have to like show up like sick, and like, that's like a phase you go through. Right. And then you start to like, I mean, especially through inner child healing, you start to like really like long for more, and like you're like, this is so empty, like this is so empty. And like not just women who feel this, men feel this too. And like it just becomes this point of like, fuck, like there's just different points where you have that awakening. Some people like some men will like meet a woman, they're like, oh fuck, like this is possible. Oh, like wait a minute, I don't know if I want like I don't know if I want to just keep fucking all these girls, and like this one like seems like amazing, and like I have never experienced anything like her. Like that's a client of mine is experiencing right now. It's beautiful. And I just think that like I think that yeah, there's a huge, it depends on like your past, but there's a huge program about like being in a relationship is gonna like lock you up for some people and like take away your freedom and like just like yada yada. And when you're with the right person, aka like a soulmate, like whoever your soul chose to, connect with, and people could have many soulmates, and whatnot. But it's when you're with that, it's just this feeling of like peace and like, fuck, this feels so good. Like I thought like all those quick highs you'd get during those like roster era, and like just sleeping with, all the people, that you're fucking around with, or friends with benefits, or situationships. It's like all those like highs that you got, it's like conscious, like loving partnership is just like those highs, but like times 10, and it's just like always. So it's like people are trying to chase this feeling, this like high, but it's like they have no idea that it's actually like on the healthier side of things once you get over there. But the transition is like disorienting. It's like, why would I drop all of this? Like men, especially with their rosters, they feel like they have this like power and like when I was in my wounded feminine with like wounded masculine, I was just like, I thought I was my power because I was like, I just thought I was like in this power and he thought he was in his power. But I made this quote recently. I'm like, toxic sex is really just two people trauma bonding, thinking they're both in power, but both slaves to their sexual desires.
Mm.
I straight channeled that,
Came from
you
something.
know, and like the men who I find that men love to work with a woman. Like the men that I work with, like they really enjoy working with me. I also like have avenues for them. I have like a men's coach friend of mine. I refer them to him if they want to have like a men's group on the side to just like be around other men who are like embodied and like doing the damn thing as they step out of their like boy phase that they may not have even realized they were in. But they love working with me and like other men love working with other women. I'm sure like it's like they get like almost like an inside scoop or like all right like how do I be like or like you know what I mean like if I were to like work with like in the past if I were to work with um like a man like it would have I would have wanted it to be like someone who was like embodied and just like really in that. This is a good example. David Lyon. Plugging him again. He's in
Wait,
this like
who?
really
Who is this?
David Lyon.
David Lyon? You spell it with an
He's in
I
this
or a
like
Y?
he's in this. I started working with him for just I was feeling a pull to his frequency. I didn't realize it was going to be helping me so much soften into my feminine and really healing for like myself. And like he's just in this more like embodied masculine. Um,
Mm.
and I've only experienced that with a few other men in my life. So it's like that's really healing for me. And it's just like I'm just seeing how he shows up, and it's really beautiful. And so like now I'm realizing like yeah, like men who work with me, it's like maybe they see qualities in me that they actually desire in a partner. And so it's like it can translate to that kind of like, oh, like maybe she can help me to attract, someone who's embodied. Um, so I noticed that, like, I don't know, men do like to work with women. I don't know.
Well, I mean, to add to your point, the lady that I worked with, well, there it is. Whenever I did the mushroom trip, it was with a lady as well. And so
Mm,
I think that, I guess she wasn't a lady. I don't know what age grap is a lady. She was a female. I'll leave it at that. I don't know what age people don't like being called lady. But the reason I bring it up is that you might be onto something here about wanting to see an example of someone from the opposite sex embodying their divine nature to almost create this validation that it actually exists.
ooh, that part. Yeah.
Because to me, I found myself in some very, let's say, dark manospheric places and reading these articles about guys mistreating women, like being fuckboys, let's say. And I remember it clicking with me. I was like, something about this doesn't seem right. And the very next thought was, if I don't think that this is right, then there has to be a girl out there that also doesn't think that this is right. And that really opened me up to like, okay, so how do I find this? And being surrounded by purely, let's say, less than healthy people, it's not something you can
Hmm.
easily find. And so I think that there's probably something to that is like, if you, there's definitely something to, if you're trying to find the avenue of like how to go move forward, you need to almost validate that the thing exists in the first place. Like you can have an idea that something exists, but if you don't know that it exists or you don't have an example, then you can't really keep moving towards it because it maybe at some level it's just a waste of energy because maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
actually exist.
100%. 100% along the journey of like, yeah, awakening to, yeah, like, and balancing your masculine and feminine and just becoming more like conscious. It's like, yeah, like having those people that show you like, oh, this is possible. It's like, oh, well, then why the fuck would I settle for anything less? You know what I mean? It's like, oh,
Right.
like, like the conscious men in my life, like the men in their like king energy, like, my friends and, any like more recent partners that I've been with and that like just more conscious energy. It's like there's no way I could go back to a past relationship because like I now have a new like a reference point. It's like, oh well, this is possible. So like, but if I hadn't experienced that yet, then I can see why people will go back to things that are no longer serving them, because they like are like, okay, you break up and you like, or stop your roster doing things and you're like, hey, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to do this, but it's like then it doesn't show up for you right away, or you're like, you're impatient or whatever, not, you don't trust, and then it's like it makes sense you'd want to go back to something that you know deep down isn't for you, and it's like straight up settling because it's like you haven't seen a new reference point yet. So yeah, like that's I think where a lot of people find themselves in.
For sure. Damn, I had something I wanted to add to this
Let me plug my
conversation.
laptop in really quick.
Okay, you do that. Hopefully, I'll remember what it was I was about to say. We were talking about men, women, safety, trying to come back to your way of being. Men, safety. The harder I try to remember this, the less likely I'm going to remember it. That's how that works, isn't it? Being in a relationship. Oh,
Um, it's gonna come back.
yeah, I feel like I'm trying too hard to think of it right now. There was something though that was like, it felt like it needed to come through. What was like a general synopsis of what you just said? Because maybe there was something in the middle there.
Saying like once you're in a relationship with more conscious being, or like once you get a new reference point, it's like you won't want to go back to what
Oh,
didn't
I got
serve you.
it. I got it. So where I find this very interesting is like, especially if you're kind of still in that fuckboy energy.
I
I
love
don't
how you
know.
can just say that, because if I said that, like, like I feel like it intrigues people more. I don't want to be the girl who's like those fuck boys. You know what I mean? Like, I love how you just, yeah, when you're the fuck boy energy, because you've been in
Yeah,
it.
I know what it is. I know what that frequency is like. Um, but what's interesting about it is this idea though of instant versus delayed gratification. Because whenever I was in that phase, like I was very much eating right. I was very fixated like with my body, working out, because I knew that would attract more females, right? I was lifting more. I was sacrificing short-term pleasures such as sweets or laying on the couch for the long-term things of working out, eating healthy. However, I wasn't applying that mentality to females. For some reason, I was still okay with like the short-term gratification of a quick, relationship that was unfulfilling versus applying the same lens of, no, why don't I actually say, hey, if this is going to last a long duration of time, that is what is optimal for, let's say, long-term improvement, right? Why am I applying all of these short-term ideas of onto a relationship versus these delayed gratifications onto a relationship?
Mm. And that's a question you're asking.
Yeah, it was kind of just like an arbitrary question. It
Yeah,
wasn't like a I'm not asking you why I was
it's
thinking that.
yeah, and I feel like I've been there too. It's I think that humans like the human parts of us like have a hard time like trusting that what we desire is on its way, or it's going to show up, and like there's like we're just so used to that like instant gratification, you know what I mean? um it's like wired in us, and um so there, that's why I said it's kind of uncomfortable when you move from like unhealthy to like more healthy consciousness. But once you're in it, you're like, oh, like you're able to kind of like hold off or not like give in to these instant gratifications, because you just know that they never bring you that true like happiness that you're actually desiring. And um yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this in all levels, but it almost feels like a drug, these instant gratifications, you know what I mean? Like, like especially after like that hookup sex, or with girls, like if the dude that is never choosing them but texts them one day like, oh my gosh, it's like this instant, like, it's like this, it's when you're rooted in deeper self-worth, you'll wait. When you're rooted in deep trust in the divine and this different kind of self-worth, not dependent on anything or anyone, y- everything changes. You just like, you can't give yourself up. You're just like, there's just no way, you know?
Mhm.
And like, there's so much distortion and um that I was in like this field, and a lot of it is like sexual distortion, where it's like this quote of like everyone just like fucking each other's trauma or something before like awakening, you know. And that's just a whole thing in itself that I could go into.
Well, I think also like a meta theme that's coming through here to me is kind of how all of these little, let's say, scarcity mindset ideas are being portrayed within this hookup culture idea, right? There's, if you're lacking trust that the universe is going to bring you someone who's divinely right for you, hookup culture is the answer for that. If you are in
Mm,
actually a scarcity mentality of there's not enough out there, so I need to get as many as I can, hookup culture would be for you. If you're in this
mm,
mindset of I don't want to be alone in life and I feel lonely, I need to get as much as I can, hookup culture is there for you. And so to
wow.
really pull back all of those layers, the only, like, you have to really be aware of those internal mechanisms of scarcity, of lack, of not trusting the universe. And if you are, hookup culture becomes a very attractive option if you're not embodying those things.
Ooh, so true. And it's crazy how it's all connects. Yeah, it all, your internal like being and state of mind, and your even your past traumas, like they reflect, everything reflects in the way you behave and the way you show up and what you choose, you know. And so that's why, again, it comes back to clearing your clearing your past trauma, integrating your inner child, becoming embodied in your being, your divinity, to claim your worth, claim your divinity, and then you see and you act differently. But like you said, yeah, it's like can be so addicting and just easy, like the hookup culture, and feel like the like, oh well, then I'll just do this, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird. It's difficult. It's weird too. It's weird too that it's not, I guess it's not weird, but it's just, it's interesting how societally speaking, having a long-term sustaining relationship, for some reason I don't think that that comes across as difficult. Like, I know it is, but if I'm looking at it from the perspective of society, it seems to me as though having a quote unquote roster of women or or males, whichever one, whichever camp you're in,
Hmm.
it seems like societally speaking, that's seen as being more difficult than actually having a sustaining, long lasting relationship.
You're
But
saying it's more
arguably,
difficult to have a roster than to have a relationship?
I think societally speaking, it's seen that way, or at least I'm projecting that it's seen that way in society. But if you really pull back the layers, I'd say it's probably far more difficult to have a long lasting, beneficial relationship with only one other individual.
Yeah, well, when you're in a long lasting, like conscious, like divine, like relationship, it's going to be harder at first, I feel like. Not as like hard, but you're gonna have to face parts of yourself that you don't have to face when you're in, you know, empty hookups and just hookup culture, because you don't. In hookups, you just hook up and, you know, you get that illusion of validation and feeling enough, and then, you know, you keep doing it. Versus like when you're in a relationship, especially a conscious relationship, meaning with like you're becoming more conscious, the other being's conscious, you will have to face your shadows, the parts of you that don't feel enough and all of that. And like it's not always, doesn't always feel comfortable at first, but it's like it's once you move past that, it's like this bliss unlike anything you've ever experienced. And it's like it's hard to even explain. It just, things just, when things change within you, they change outside of you, and you're like, oh, like, you know, like I went from like sleeping with hot men and just, you know, doing that whole game to them being like, ooh, like, oh, I'm already like build with my king. You know what I mean? It's just like, wait, when did this all happen? Like I never thought I'd, you know, because I had
Yeah.
like a lot of avoidant tendencies growing up and stuff like that. I was similar to a lot of men. And so it's interesting. But something that I'm feeling called to pull this into because it'd be like interesting, and it kind of like pulls into the very beginning of like the golden handcuffs, and like kind of ties to sexual distortion, just like humans like thinking they got it, like they just like in this program of like just like these just quick highs. Um, so when I was before that corporate job, I was actually a stripper in San Francisco, and it's actually I think the first time I'm sharing it on a podcast.
You're also the second stripper on the
Oh,
podcast.
I love
Well,
that.
post stripper, I guess.
Okay, post stripper. Uh,
She's not a stripper
um,
now. She used to be a stripper.
I'm not a stripper anymore. No. So, but and that was for like 6 years, and then I went straight into corporate. So those golden handcuffs I had on me was like making money. I can work whenever I want. I have quote unquote so much freedom and all of that. And that's just something in itself. But like I saw so much distortion in just like humans and sexuality and like women thinking they're in their power and men thinking they're in their power, their money and their power, and like people lying, people cheating, and just it was like a whole wild place. And it was also a lot of fun, there's a lot of beauty in it. um Women being able to fully embrace their sexuality and like all this stuff, but it was like so distorted. And I feel like I could go deep here into like Egyptian things, but I feel like I came back in this life to really bring light into the shadows of like sexuality and like all these distortions. And so I like went so deep into it, being like a stripper for so long, and just like just thinking I was in my power, and just like it was so distorted. And it was just like these men thinking they're in their power, and like nobody really happy. Like everyone was like just taking drugs, or like like things to just like be okay. And like pretty much there's a whole place of a shit ton of trauma. And it was like, when you're in that phase of just trauma bonding with people, it can feel addicting and fun, and it's like toxic, this high. And at some point in the awakening, you move into deeper embodiment, and you'll never want to go back to that. But it was just like I just saw so much of that, and I actually carried it with me outside the strip club, and I was still trying to like manipulating men, like with like my body, and just kind of like just seeing how easy it was to manipulate men. It was like too easy, like getting free bottle service for the girls, like free shit wherever we went, just just like using this like sexual appeal. And like now I'm at a point where like I like it I am not a slave to my sexual desires, and like I'm very not in alignment or attracted to men who are a slave to their sexual desires and have no discipline, where it's just like almost like I get this vision of everyone just kind of like when I was in the stage kind of walk around like dead ass asleep. But I thought I was like so conscious, and I was like just as a woman just giving my body up, like situationships, just men who didn't choose me. And just like these men were playing small too, because they were just like like just like hooking up with whoever, and just like this like slave to the sexual desires. And we're all just like fucking
like
each other, and just like what?
Like a
We're like
zombie.
zombies. We're like zombies. We're like, I'm just like having the best, yeah, it's the best sex ever. Oh, I'm just like, yeah. And it's just like you're just completely draining your life force and your creative energy. you know?
Oh, I do know.
And everyone really desires like deep, passionate, like love, like whether they realize it yet or not. And it's wild how deep I went into that, and just seeing all of it.
Yeah, semen retention is something that I've been practicing quite a bit recently, and it's powerful in its own right. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I want to ask you something about I'm happy to talk about it at some point, but I think while we're on the
Yeah.
topic, you're talking about being a stripper and like that energy of utilizing your body to get things you desire. And this is a huge thing that I'm seeing in the feminist movement, like this third wave of feminism, or fourth wave, whichever one we're on. It seems to me that we're starting to hit a very destructive point with it, which is touching on what you're saying, where it's like, oh, like let me flash my boobs around. Let me, run around. And being a stripper, being a prostitute's empowering because you're using your body to make money, to show value to
Mm.
society. And to me, I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here. And just how you can't say fuck boy, I feel like this is a situation where it's like, I don't know that I have enough intelligence or awareness to navigate this in a respectful manner. So I'm curious as to, so I'm going to hold back kind of on my comments, but I'm
He's a
curious
smart
as to
man.
what, yeah, sometimes. um, so in your opinion, what, like, let's attack it like this. What is the issue with the comment that utilizing your sexuality in this new feminist approach, what's the issue with it? Or is there an issue? Maybe you don't think there is an issue, but what's
Yeah.
what's going on with that?
Yeah. And I love that you asked that. And yeah, I have my truth on it, and it'll trigger some listening, but also empower others, right? And shine some light because I lived it, you know? And, even after I left being a stripper for so long, and I was happy in my corporate job, and there were still parts of me that were almost like, damn, like I could just go viral on Instagram and I could just start posting some hot ass shit and like really just like people could just pay me and I can go on OnlyFans and like it'd be so easy, And like there had been thoughts of me that I was like, should I just fuck it and just do it? Like should I people would reach out like, hey, are you on OnlyFans? And I'm like, damn, spirit's like testing me. And like and I thought about going back to dancing a couple times, but I already knew that I didn't want to ever really truly go back. And I I know this, and to each their own, but when you first get into like that sex industry, whether it's like OnlyFans or like stripping or like you get on this high where you feel like you have so much power and freedom and money like never before. And it's like addicting, and we call it the stripper high. Not many people know about it. If you're in your first year of stripping, you're probably in it right now, but we call it the stripper high. We call it the stripper high. And again, it took me obviously going through it all to realize. And then you start to get anxiety, depression starts to come on. A lot of the girls in this, like like that industry, it's are on antidepressants or taking drugs. It's very common. I had to get on antidepressants after like my first few months. I started getting panic attacks. I didn't know what it was from,
Wow.
but it was like from like being in this environment of like this just like being just like yeah like just this environment of so much trauma all around me and within me.
But you felt empowered at the same time.
Yes, and that's why it was confusing because I felt so empowered, a place where I got to be my full like sensual sexual self, and like that just like was in my nature, and like people were like cheering you on and throwing you $100 bills. I could make like $1,000 dancing on stage one night just being hot. like how like and that was like not everyone, but like that was happening for me, and it was like wow, like this is so addicting, and wow, like I'm that bitch. It's like then your ego blows up, and I'm like, oh, I got it like that. And I was like, like men were like praising me, and it was like I was in this distortion of like, oh, I'm enough, like wow, like I'm the best, and like and they were like being a slave to their like fantasies and desires, and then like just giving me all their money, and it was just like zombie energy. And I realized that like yeah, I started getting panic attacks, anxiety, depression. I was on antidepressants for like 4 or 5 months when I was 21 during the time of stripping, and I didn't correlate the two obviously until I became more conscious. I was like, that's so weird. Like, what's going on? And but I see it happen in so many women, and even friends of mine. Like, I have a friend who turned bipolar a year into going stripping, and I'm like, it's just trauma coming up. Like, it's an opportunity for awakening, and it's like it's almost like selling your soul. It feels like, again, like no shame to anyone doing it, and this won't anyone who's in the sex industry or OnlyFans or stripping like and they're truly in their sovereignty and power and it's their truth, then this probably won't trigger them. But it will trigger those who are like, yes, I'm embodied, I'm in my power, because I know what it feels like to think you're in your power, but not like really be in your power. And it's just like a big part for me was why I had to leave that industry was like I wasn't going to be able to have a healthy relationship. No man I was with was going to want like me like being a stripper, even like I already do OnlyFans, like my photos all over the internet, like literally no shame to anyone who's doing it, like at all. But it's just like for my personal experience, like I was in relationships and they just weren't sustainable. Like not even because the other person. Like I even dated a partner at one time and he was like, "Hey, I love you and like I obviously don't want you to you keep stripping, but like I'm not gonna be your keeper and tell you what to do." And so we were together for a while and I kept stripping because like that's just what I wanted to do. And it started to like intoxicate our relationship. I think like he was like cheating on me or like lying because I saw all of this happening at the strip club.
Mm.
So I was just like seeing the worst of the worst. I was seeing all the men come in, like not everyone was a cheater and liar, but like a lot of the people were unhappy in their marriages, unhappy in their relationships. A lot of the strippers were unhappy in their relationships. And so all of this distortion was playing out and I was being like polluted with it and it was attaching to my own distortion. And I was bringing it into my relationship, bringing it into my like outer life. And it was just like not, I just thought I was in so much power and so much freedom. Like I had no idea. And my worth was dependent on like the money I was making each night or like however many like, like men want to get a dance from me. And like my worth was just like my ego was just getting so, so big. And I was being so disconnected from my essence. And your essence is like that worth, not reliant on how you look, how much money you have, or any of that, just like this purity within you. And so, like, for me, I don't see a reality. And this is the reason I haven't ever gone back there is where, like, I don't see a reality or I've never experienced a reality where I could be in stripping or do OnlyFans. I've never done that. But like I said, I was like, there were some times where it came across my mind and there's no reality where I could do all of that and have a truth, like embodied in my truth, in my essence and this peaceful state of mind. And, um, but it's addicting. It's addicting when you're in it with the illusion of power you have, the illusion of um, worth that you're in, and all the money that comes with it. And I reached a point where I was like, money won't ever bring me happiness. No amount of validation or money is bringing me happiness. Because like, I was one of the girls at the club who had made most of the money, like a lot of it. And like, I was like, I had so much money and I had so much like validation. Like when men would come in, they'd be like, "Oh, like my dancer name was Heidi," and they'd be like, "Heidi, like we need you for this, like for these guys, like you'd be the perfect one." So it was like this like inflation of my ego, and I was just like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm in this power." In reality, I was just another like puppet of like sexual distortion. So like
Mm.
that kind of sums it up. And I know, like, yeah, this would be empowering for some and triggering for others, and you kind of have to experience it to then break free from the golden handcuffs and the illusions of it all. And this is something that I'm going to be helping, I think, a lot of women with, and even men break free from their like being manipulated easily by these just like women who are unconsciously manipulating men and so forth. It's just like a back and forth.
Oh, I
And so
do.
coming out of the strip club, I was like, still like, even in dating, I felt like there was like very unconscious part, like manipulation happening. And I'm like, I can get
Mm.
whatever I want, you know?
Sure.
And it just, right now, I'm like, I think because I'm out of it now, but like, I'm not attracted to men who are easily manipulated because I was once a woman who was there too. And it's like, I, it's like a very like, for me, I'm like, oh no, I'm not going back there. you know, like I want to
Yeah.
be in my truth and my essence and this true peace. And yeah, so it's kind of a
So
long
then,
winded answer, but
so to bring it back to the question of, where it is, how does this relate? How does this empowerment relate to like the newest wave of feminism? It sounds like, in the vibe I'm getting from your answer, is that it's false empowerment, that it's an illusion of
mm,
empowerment, that it's not actual empowerment. They're saying, oh, this is empower yourself by taking control of your body and doing whatever you want with it. You know, the patriarchy has silenced our bodies and our ability to be women. So go and strip if you want to be a stripper, go be a prostitute if you want to be a prostitute, open that OnlyFans. But from what your answer is giving me is that it's like a false identity with empowerment. It's not true, authentic, soul born empowerment.
Yeah, that's from my own experience. And to each their own. Maybe a woman is feeling in her truth and her essence, and it's not affecting her relationships or any of that. And I just have never come across a woman in that industry that hasn't polluted her external reality ever. I've never.
Well, so then, okay, so now this is going to be, or I might be able to add some insight into this. So you're saying, right, and I find it interesting you're breaking this down into, you know, maybe this is some people's truth. The way that I currently view the world, and I think that there's, well, let's not bring that up. So one way of interpreting, when people talk about like heaven and hell, one way that I've seen of interpreting it is, and there's multiple ways, but one way is like that this physical plane of existence is the metaphorical hell. Just we're all in it, right? This is the metaphorical hell, and heaven is the idea of us being able to break the cycle of reincarnation to ascend into the different plane of existence, if you will. And so in that general landscape, and I know there's some, you know, we can dive into that if we want, but within that general landscape, by choosing things that attach you more to the physical reality. So whether that's porn, stripping, chasing money for the sake of chasing money, putting profit over people, you know, when you create a company that their number one goal is profit and it's not about the people involved. So when you do all those things, you're aligning more with this physical reality, which from a biblical or from a even spiritual scripture standpoint can be identified as hell. So, you know, and I want to bring this back to your comment of maybe it is some people's truths. My contention, and I know this is difficult because we literally said earlier in the podcast, be careful whenever you start saying one thing is for everybody. Where I would come to, and I'm open to updating this, is that it's ideally nobody's deepest truth and that they may be getting further from their truth, right? And I mean, and I think a good example of this is how you've been in the industry and I've never found anyone that was truly empowered and in their power with pursuing a life of stripping, prostitution, OnlyFans. Do you, like, I guess I'm not really sure if there's a question here, but is there um maybe any
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
insight you're able to offer
Hmm.
me that's able to give me more like
Yeah,
either agreements or pushback on it?
I speak upon that because I think there's a part of me that's holding back a little bit from my full truth here because there are some women who are going to be homeless. They have nowhere to, or they need money. They need money to support their children, and I'd see that at the strip club sometimes. And women where it's like it wasn't their like only option, but it felt like their only option. If they didn't have family to lend them money or anything, and so I don't like to corner people fully with my truth. I always like, lend a hand and let me know if you want me to show you the way out of the distortion. But yeah, like I'm firm in my truth on like being in the sex industry, just completely pollutes your mind, body, and soul, and just always. But and your relationships and all of that. But I think yeah, there's this part of me as you say that it's like I do have compassion for the women who unconsciously go into it. For me, it was like pretty unconscious just for fun when I was 19 and then turned into 6 years, and some women started when they're 16 or 17 because they are a single mom and it turns into 10 years and then it's like, and so like those kind of women I think that I'm like really just feeling for right now and just like But I think in the terms of like the women who are, yeah, like I'm going to do OnlyFans or I'm in my empowerment, because that's actually coming online right now. Like a lot with these women are spiritual OnlyFans and stuff like that. And like a part of me was like, fuck, should I do that? You know, like a part of me was like, damn, like because I'm like, damn, like I could just make all this money, but that's the thing. It was rooted in money, this physicality.
Mm.
And like I could have been like, it's not about the money. Well, then like, what is it about? Helping maybe other people see a different side of the body. And like, I don't really know. Yeah, it's I'm right there with you. It's like I'm open to differences, but I lived it and experienced it, and I do have compassion for women in it who don't know where else to go. And um, yeah, something about I don't know. It's hard to explain because like I love women who show up on Instagram and they're like beautiful, like sensual photos and sharing their wisdom, but something about putting the body out there to receive money is isn't it has never yeah it doesn't click. It feels really because a lot of the men or even women who are attracted to these, like, you know, let's say someone's on OnlyFans or a stripper, the people who are attracted to it, they want to see a naked person. They want to step into their fantasy. They want to, you know, whatever they want to do. It doesn't feel like truth fully. You know, even with like porn, like it's so common, like just to like it's like this like mummy energy again. It's just like or this zombie energy, just like yes, these like quick highs, you know? Because if you're on OnlyFans, like I imagine if I went on OnlyFans and I posted like hot photo or whatever, did my hair and makeup, and I got like all these likes, it's like hitting my ego. It's like, ooh, it's like
Mm.
gassing up my ego. And then it's like every like equals money, 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 ego, ego, money. And then it's like I'm just pulled farther and farther from my truth, you know? And so let's say I had $1 million trillion, I didn't need any money. I don't think I'd go on OnlyFans. Like I don't think I
Yeah.
would have became a stripper if I didn't need any money or anything. And I think I would have just wanted to keep doing what I'm doing and helping others with this.
Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation, and I think what is coming up for me and what you're saying without kind of saying it is like the intention of why you're doing what you're doing is so important, right? If you're offering up your body for money, that's whenever it's like you're subjugating almost the, let's say, spiritual hoopla, the spiritual path for a physical, for this physical existence. But so I guess the question is if there is a way that you're able to utilize your body in order to aid people spiritually, or at least not with this identification to the material world. And it's interesting too because I'm thinking about this thing that me and my roommate watched. It was probably like 2 or 3 years ago. It was so fascinating. It was I don't know if my roommate must have messaged this girl or met her on like Tinder or something. I think they went on a date at one point, and then nothing really happened after the fact. And what he found out through following her like on Instagram is that she was basically a nudist, and she hosted this cooking show with her and like four other girls. And it was interesting because they did it all naked. And like I've never watched porn with anyone, but like me and him watched this, like them baking naked, and there wasn't like this sexual undertone behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very fascinating because like there was just a piece of us that was so captivated by this. I'm pretty sure we watched the whole thing. It was probably like an hour or an hour and a half. And it's not like there wasn't this sexual energy underneath it. Like it's so difficult to explain.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like you can just feel into the frequency of the intention. It's like a frequency.
Like it was fun, but it was like interesting, but it wasn't like, it wasn't weird to sit there. Like if we would have thrown porn on the screen, it would have been weird to sit there with my roommate.
Yeah, yeah.
But we were able to comfortably watch this. Like I started telling people about it. I was like, guys, you got to check this out. Like, and
Yeah,
then it was met
wow.
with some resistance, but it was just, I still don't know how to describe it, but something about it was like very wholesome and pure and like innocent, if you will. So
Yeah,
there's something there.
I love that. I love that you said that. And yeah, like the intention. the intention for sure. And um, yeah, this could we could go deep into this one. um, I'm I think yeah, it's like you said, you can't explain it. It's the frequency of the intention, and yeah, I see some women rising and bringing like consciousness, I guess, into like the OnlyFans world. They're talking about spirituality or sharing sensuality, and it's a different intention and frequency. Maybe
Mm.
that um, works for them. And yeah, I guess I'd just be curious. I'd be curious to ask you my past self if you were given abundance of money, like you didn't need any money, wasn't even a thing. You didn't need any of that. You were totally provided for, like by the divine. Like you were so provided for, and you felt just fully in your worth. You didn't need any validation at all. Like just you did all your inner child work. You're like this like worth, which is like rooted in truth. If you would want to uh, do this line of work, you know what I mean? And like, and that's okay if you do. Like, then have fun, maybe. You know what I mean? But um, yeah, for me, there were just these little like mini, like it was so unconscious, just worth and money. It started out though as just for fun. I was like, oh, let me go,
Mm.
like, yeah, like some money I need, but like at 19, like I didn't have bills to pay. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
was just like, I want to go like dance and have fun because I love dancing. Like I'm never gonna stop dancing, like for fun. And but I think yeah, the fun turned into something else. So like the fun turned into something else really quickly. Yeah.
Caroline, I feel like this is a beautiful spot to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We'll have to leave this as a cliffhanger because I feel like we're going to have more conversations in the future. So
Mm-hmm.
let's let this simmer down in our subconscious mind for a couple nights, and we'll reconvene at some point to bring this back up and see what else comes up in our realities with regards to it.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be much more to come.
So before you get off, why don't you tell the people how they can get in touch with you, and if you have any last messages or themes that you want to touch on before we get out of here.
Yeah. I'd just say to, for like messages, I'd say to allow your truth to evolve, allow your truth to be your truth, and allow your triggers to be expanders for your consciousness. Um, Also, my favorite one is you are your own medicine. You are the medicine. Your soul always knows its way back home.
Mm.
And where you could find me is Instagram, Caroline Gutierrez. I'll be linked, I think, under here. And I just started a podcast also. I was telling Play. Um, it's called Dancing with the Divine. I'm so excited. So that just started up last week. So you could find me there if you want to learn more about just all this stuff. And I have a group program coming out, group container. It's coming out. It's called Source Led Living. David Lyon will be in that also. He'll be on one of the
Wait, who?
sessions. David Lyon. David Lyon. Yeah, and yeah, I'm really excited for that. I'm going to be talking all about just everything and just all of the things that are coming through for me: consciousness, shifting relationship patterns, money as energy, how to live just a life of ease, flow, and fun. So I'm really excited for that. So you can find me on Instagram and learn more about just where I'm at, what I'm doing, and tap into the frequency.
Beautiful. All those links will be in the description, guys. Caroline Gutierrez, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure talking
Mm-hmm.
with you. And whether or not I see you guys in this dimension with or without your clothes on, I know for sure that I will be seeing you guys in the sixth dimension.
Love that.